Hey friends, welcome back to my kitchen. I've got another recipe for you today. Today we are going to be making some keto queso dip in the Instant Pot. Although this recipe would be very easy to do on the stove as well. So if you don't have an Instant Pot, stick around. I'll have the stovetop instructions in the written recipe. First off, let's just go over the ingredients. The first thing you're gonna need is some kind of a salsa, about 14 to 16 ounces or about 2 cups. And you can adjust the spiciness of the queso based on which salsa you choose. You can choose a hot and spicy one or a more mild one if you don't want the spice. In my original non-keto version of this recipe, I have the ingredients broken down into like fresh tomatoes, onions, and chilies. And so if you don't want to buy the prepared salsa, you could also use those measurements here. I also find that this is a great way to use up salsa. If I happen to have some in the fridge that is gonna go bad soon, it's a great way to get everyone in the family to eat it up. Next thing you're gonna need is 1.5 cups of broth. Any kind of broth will work here. Then for seasoning, I opted to use the new taco seasoning from Redmond Real Salt. I have been loving their new seasonings. And again, in my non-keto version of this recipe, I had the seasonings broken down into chili powder, garlic powder, black pepper, salt, etc. But since I have this delicious taco seasoning just sitting around, I decided I would go ahead and use that here. But if you don't have that or another prepared taco seasoning, you can use the individual spice measurements that I have in my other recipe. Then for the creaminess and the cheesiness, I have 1 cup of shredded cheese. You can really use any kind of cheese you want. I have a Mexican blend. Then we're gonna use 4 ounces of cream cheese or half of a regular sized block and 1/2 cup of half and half. In my non-keto version of this recipe, I used 2 tablespoons of arrowroot starch for thickening, which doesn't add a ton of carbs, but I really wanted to get the carbs a little bit lower for the keto version. So what I'm using for thickening in this recipe is this perfected guar gum from Modernist Pantry. I've been experimenting with it as far as using it as a thickener for soups and stews and sauces and have really been enjoying it. But you can use any keto thickener that you have or that you enjoy. I just recommend starting small and increasing as needed to get the thickness that you want. Just a real quick break to tell you about the sponsor of today's video. Element is a science-backed electrolyte formulation that also tastes really great. Their mix of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium is perfect for keeping your electrolytes balanced, whether you're an athlete or just a stay-at-home mom like I am. The raspberry flavor is my absolute favorite. I typically need just 1 packet a day to feel my best. Unless I'm doing a lot of strenuous farm work or just having a very active day, then I add an extra packet. I love that Element doesn't include artificial flavors or colorings. Basically, it's all the good stuff without any of the junk. And right now, Element is offering my viewers a deal where you can get a free sample pack of all 8 of their flavors. Well, 7 of their flavors plus their raw unflavored version. You can get this deal exclusively with my link, drinkelement.com/indigo. That's DRINKLMNT.com/indigo. This is a great way to try out all the different flavors for yourself or to share Element with a friend. Thanks again to Element for sponsoring this video, and now back to the kitchen. The first thing we're gonna do is add our 1.5 cups of broth to the Instant Pot, along with our jar of salsa and 1 tablespoon of the Redmond taco seasoning. Now we're going to lock the lid, and if you have a model that has to be manually set to sealing, make sure it's set to sealing. And then we are going to cook this on high pressure for 4 minutes. After the cook time is complete, just let the Instant Pot sit on keep warm mode for about 5 minutes before you go ahead and quick release the rest of the pressure. I will mention though that there's no rush at this point. If I am having a big dinner and I am wanting to make queso and wanting it to be hot and fresh when it's time to eat, I will go ahead and get the Instant Pot to this point and then just let it sit on keep warm mode until I'm ready to mix up the rest of the ingredients and have the queso hot and ready to serve. Once the pressure is fully released and the pin has dropped down, go ahead and open the lid and add in your cream cheese, your shredded cheese, and the half and half. You're also going to want to turn the Instant Pot onto saute mode at this point. This is going to help the cheeses get fully melted and allow the thickener to activate. Then there's a couple of things you can do at this point. If you like to have a chunky queso where it still has the chunks of onions and tomatoes from the salsa, you can just keep stirring until all of the cheeses are melted and everything is combined. What I have found that my family prefers the most is to puree the chunks of tomato and onion. When you have kids, usually they don't care for that kind of thing. And I actually prefer it smooth as well. So what I like to use is my immersion blender here and just get it pureed up until everything is smooth. And that really helps to get all of the cream cheese melted and incorporated and all the cheese nice and smooth in there. So you can see that the cheese has made the sauce a bit thick already, but I prefer to have a little bit thicker of a queso so it sticks on the chips a little bit more. So what I have found is about 2 teaspoons of the perfected guar gum works really well to get a thickness that I like. But like I said, it's always a good idea to start small and then add more as needed. So I'm adding 1 teaspoon here and then stirring and letting it come up to a simmer, and then adding another half teaspoon, stirring, and adding another half teaspoon. With anything like xanthan gum or guar gum, you're going to want to make sure that you have like a whisk and you're whisking vigorously as you add it because it can clump very easily. And again, if you are not worried about a few extra carbs, you can mix 2 tablespoons of arrowroot into the half and half and just use that as your thickener, and that works great as well. Once you have your queso to a thickness that you like and you've brought it up just to a simmer, go ahead and remove it from the heat. You don't want to boil it heavily at this point. The queso is now ready to serve, and my husband's favorite way to enjoy it is just with like a handful of chopped tomatoes on top. My favorite is to sprinkle on some diced red onions and or green onions, as well as some chopped cilantro. That just gives like a freshness and a crunch to it that I really, really love. Then as far as serving, my absolute favorite chip replacement is carnivore crisps. Really, any of their varieties are going to be delicious. Ones that I prefer for a dip that's high fat, like this queso dip, is more of the leaner varieties like chicken breast or eye of round. Pork loin is also another good one. But like I said, any of their varieties are going to be great with a dip like this. I do have a discount code for carnivore crisps to share with you guys. I will have all that down in the description. And I wanted to let you know that just recently they changed my coupon code to be multi-use. So before it was just a one-time use, like on your first order, but now you can use it over and over again, which is super exciting. So if you have used it previously and you need to reorder, go ahead and use it again and use it as many times as you would like. You can find a printable version of my keto queso recipe down in the description below. Thanks so much for hanging out in the kitchen with me, and I will see you again in the next video.